The day my son called me useless, there were 5 people standing in my living room. A real estate agent in a navy blazer, my niece Megan, who had come by to help me sort old boxes, a representative from a development company with polished shoes and a folder full of numbers, my son, Ryan, standing near the fireplace like he already owned the house, and me, sitting in my wheelchair beside the front window, trying to keep my hands still so nobody would see how badly they were shaking. My name is Edward Miller. I was 58 years old, paralyzed from the waist down, living in the same Cleveland house where I had raised my son after everything else in our family had fallen apart. Ryan wanted to sell it. He called it a financial opportunity. He said the neighborhood was changing, developers were buying old lots, and the house was worth more now than it had ever been. He had a startup idea, investors who were almost ready, and a business plan that seemed to depend heavily on me giving up the only place I had left. "This is not just a house," I told him. Ryan sighed like I had said something childish. "Dad, you're not using half of it. The upstairs is full of junk. The garage is full of broken tools. The whole place needs repairs you can't afford." The real estate agent looked down at her tablet. The developer's representative pretended to study the ceiling. Megan stood frozen near the hallway, watching Ryan with disbelief growing across her face. "I know what it needs," I said. "I live here." "That's exactly the problem," Ryan snapped. "You're just sitting here while everything gets worse." I looked at him then, really looked at him. He was 29, wearing an expensive watch I knew he could not afford. His hair styled, his shirt crisp, his voice full of the kind of confidence that had not yet learned the cost of being wrong. "Ryan," I said quietly, "this house is all I have left of your childhood." His jaw tightened. "No," he said. "This house is all you have left that can actually help me." The room went silent. I felt Megan move behind me, but she did not speak. Ryan turned toward the agent, then back to me, embarrassed now, but not enough to stop. "Dad, you've been useless for years," he said. "This house is the only thing you have that can still do something." There are sentences that do not hit like a slap. They hit like a door closing. For a moment, I could hear the old furnace humming under the floor. I could hear a car pass outside. I could hear my own breathing, slow and uneven, as if my body was trying to decide whether it still wanted to stay in that room. Useless. I had been called disabled, broken, dependent, a burden once by my own wife before she left. But useless, from the sun I had carried out of fire with my back breaking under a burning beam, was something different. Ryan did not know that part. He only knew the chair. He only knew the father who could not run, could not climb stairs, could not work the way other fathers worked. He knew the man who needed ramps and grab bars and help lifting heavy boxes. He did not know that the body he was ashamed of had become this way, shielding his 5-year-old body from a collapsing ceiling. I lowered my eyes to my hands. "I never wanted to be a burden to you," I said. Ryan looked away, but he did not apologize. The developer's representative cleared his throat and slid a document onto the coffee table. "We can give the family some time," he said carefully. The family. That word almost made me laugh, because a few hours later, while trying to prove this house had nothing worth saving, Ryan would climb into the attic and find a metal box with his name written on it. Inside, he would find the hospital report, the fire department incident file, the old newspaper clipping, the surgical notes that explained why I never walked again. And by the time he finished reading, the son who thought his disabled father had been useless for years would learn that he was alive only because I had been useful in the one moment that mattered most. Before the fire, I was not a man people pitied. I was a firefighter with Engine 14 in Cleveland. I was not famous, not wealthy, not the kind of man who gave speeches or war medals where people could see them. I was just good at my job. I could carry a hose up 3 flights of stairs. I could kick through a swollen door. I could crawl through smoke with one hand on the wall and the other reaching for someone who could not find their way out. I loved the work because it meant something simple. When people were having the worst day of their lives, we showed up. My wife, Carol, used to say I came home smelling like smoke even after 2 showers. She said it like a complaint, but in the early years, she smiled when she said it. We had a small house, a used sedan, a mortgage we could just barely handle, and a little boy named Ryan who believed my helmet was the most magical object in the world. When Ryan was small, he wanted to be everywhere I was. He wore a plastic firefighter hat until the strap snapped. He ran through the hallway yelling, "Engine 14 coming through." He asked me whether fire was scared of water. He asked if I had ever saved a cat. He asked if heroes got tired. I told him the truth. "Yes," I said, "heroes get tired. They just keep going anyway." Back then, Ryan looked at me like I could lift the whole world if he asked. On my days off, I fixed things around the house. The porch railing, the kitchen sink, the garage door that stuck in winter. I was not rich, but I was useful in the way working men are useful. I had strong arms, a steady back, and a body I never thought to appreciate because it had always done what I needed. I thought I had time. Time to pay off the house. Time to take Ryan camping. Time to teach him how to drive. Time to retire with my badge in a box and stories to tell without bitterness. Time to become old slowly, the normal way. Then the fire came. Ryan was 5 years old. It was a cold February evening, the kind where the windows fog from the inside and old houses make small noises as the heat moves through them. I was off duty. Carol had gone to the grocery store. Ryan was upstairs in his bedroom, supposed to be putting away toy trucks but probably making a bigger mess instead. I smelled smoke before the alarm went off. At first, I thought something was burning in the kitchen. Then the lights flickered. A second later, the smoke alarm screamed, sharp and frantic. I rolled off the couch and ran toward the back of the house, where thick gray smoke was already pushing from the laundry room. Electrical fire. Old wiring behind the wall. Fast moving. I knew it before I saw the flames. I also knew Ryan was upstairs. I shouted his name. No answer. The stairway was already filling with smoke. I grabbed a towel, soaked it at the kitchen sink, wrapped it over my mouth and went up. I had gone into burning buildings with full gear, a crew, an air tank, a radio, and backup. That night, I had none of that. I had bare hands, a wet towel, and the sound of my son coughing somewhere above me. I found him in the hallway outside his room, crying, disoriented, trying to crawl but moving the wrong way. Smoke does that. It steals the world. It makes familiar places strange. I wrapped him in a blanket from his bed and got low. The house groaned. That is the sound I remember most. Not the alarm. Not the flames. The groan. A deep wooden complaint from above us, as if the house itself was warning me that it could not hold much longer. I carried Ryan toward the stairs. Halfway down the hallway, the ceiling gave way. There was no time to think. I turned my body over his. I pushed him hard toward the stair landing, and something burning and heavy came down across my back. Pain exploded through me. Not pain like a pulled muscle or a broken rib. This was brighter, deeper. A pain that seemed to erase the lower half of my body from the world. I could hear Ryan screaming. I could not move my legs, but my arms still worked. So I dragged myself forward. I do not remember every second after that. I remember smoke, heat, my hands clawing at carpet, Ryan's small body under one arm. I remember the front door breaking open. I remember voices, boots, someone yelling my name. I remember cold air hitting my face as firefighters pulled us out. Then I remember the ambulance. I kept asking if Ryan was alive. The paramedic kept telling me he was breathing. I did not believe him until someone lifted Ryan close enough for me to see his face. He was covered in soot, coughing, terrified, but alive. Only then did I let go. At the hospital, the doctors used words I understood too well from hearing them on emergency scenes. Spinal trauma, compression fracture, neurological damage, emergency surgery.
Permanent imperme.
One doctor said it gently. "Mr. Miller, we are going to do everything we can, but you may not regain use of your legs." I looked past him toward the hallway. Where's my son? That was all I cared about. Ryan survived with smoke inhalation, a few burns, and nightmares that woke him for months. I survived with a wheelchair, a damaged spine, chronic pain, and a future I did not recognize. The department honored me. My crew visited. They called me brave. They called me a hero. Someone wrote an article. There was even a medal ceremony months later, though I barely remember it because I was still learning how to transfer from a bed to a chair without falling. But admiration does not pay every bill. The house needed repairs after the fire. Insurance covered some, not all. Medical costs piled up. Disability payments helped, but not enough. Carol tried at first. She really did. She took me to appointments, learned how to manage medications, smiled in front of Ryan. But resentment grows quietly when people believe their lives have been stolen. One night, after Ryan had gone to sleep, she said, "Every time I look at you, I remember that fire." I said nothing. A few months later, she left. Ryan grew up hearing that his father had been hurt at work. That was the version Carol preferred. It was cleaner, easier. It did not make her look cruel for leaving. It did not make Ryan feel responsible. And I did not correct it because I believed silence was mercy. I never wanted my son to look at my chair and think, "That happened because of me." So I let him think less of me, not all at once. That would have been easier to notice. It happened slowly, year after year. When he was little, he climbed into my lap and asked me to race his toy cars along the armrest. When he got older, he started asking why I could not come to field day like other dads. Why I did not work anymore. Why our house looked older than his friends' houses. Why we did not go on vacations. I gave small answers. "My back's not great today. Money's tight. We'll do something fun another time." Another time often never came. If you have ever had a parent who gave you only part of the truth because they thought they were protecting you, maybe you understand how love can sometimes create the very distance it is trying to prevent. Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the sacrifices we do not see are the ones shaping our entire lives. Ryan stopped seeing me as the firefighter who carried him through smoke. He saw a man in a chair, a man with bills, a man who needed help, a man who could not give him the life he wanted. And because I never told him the whole story, he filled the silence with shame. Ryan became successful in the way young men sometimes become successful before they become wise. He wore fitted shirts, spoke quickly, and used words like leverage, equity, and scaling as if language itself could make money appear. He worked in marketing for a tech company downtown, but what he really wanted was his own business. An app, then a consulting firm, then a property platform, then something involving investors I never fully understood. Every few months, the dream changed. The urgency stayed the same. He wanted out of the life he came from. I could see it even when he tried to hide it. He hated the old neighborhood. He hated the cracked driveway. He hated the ramp on the porch. He hated that my wheelchair was visible from the front window if the curtains were open. When coworkers asked about his family, he kept me vague. "My dad's retired. My dad doesn't get out much. My dad has health issues. Never, my father was a firefighter. Never, my father raised me alone. Never, my father survived something that would have killed a weaker man." I told myself he was protecting his privacy. But deep down, I knew better. He was protecting his image. The pressure to sell the house began as a suggestion. "Dad, have you thought about downsizing?" I said no. Then it became advice. "You could get into a better assisted living community if you sold." I told him I did not need assisted living. Then it became math. "Do you know what developers are paying on this street? You're sitting on money." I told him I was sitting in my home. That made him angry. To Ryan, the house was inefficient. Too old. Too expensive to maintain. Too emotionally inconvenient. To me, it was the last place where all versions of my life still existed at once. The doorway where Ryan used to hang his backpack. The kitchen where he ate cereal before school. The repaired wall near the laundry room where the fire began. The hallway upstairs I had not been able to visit in years, but still saw in dreams. The house was not just wood and brick. It was memory. Then Ryan's startup opportunity came. He arrived one Saturday morning carrying coffee and a folder, which was how I knew he wanted something. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and explained that he had a chance to buy into a platform that would change local property analytics. He needed capital. The investor window was closing. If he missed it, he said, he might lose the chance of a lifetime. "How much?" I asked. He avoided the number at first. Then he said it. It was more than I had in savings, more than my retirement account could safely handle, and much more than he should have been risking on a dream held together by buzzwords. I can't give you that, I said. I'm not asking you to give it to me. I'm asking you to think bigger. Meaning, sell the house. I looked at him for a long time.
No.
He leaned back, frustrated. You didn't even think about it. I have thought about it. The answer is no. Why? Because of memories? Dad, memories don't pay for repairs. Memories don't build anything. They built you. He rolled his eyes. That hurt, but I let it pass. A week later, he brought the real estate agent without telling me. Her name was Allison. She was polite, professional, and clearly uncomfortable when she realized I had not agreed to a valuation. Ryan kept talking over the awkwardness, pointing out the lot size, the recent developer purchases, the potential teardown value. I sat in my wheelchair near the window and listened to my son sell my life by the square foot. Megan arrived halfway through. She was my sister's daughter, and she had always been kinder to me than Ryan knew how to be. She noticed my face immediately. Uncle Ed, she said, did you agree to this? Ryan answered before I could. We're just exploring options. Megan looked at him. That's not what I asked. The developer's representative arrived 20 minutes later, invited by Ryan. That was when I realized this was not a conversation. It was pressure. They had numbers ready, estimates, timelines, possible cash offer. They spoke as if the house were already empty. I finally said, enough. The room went quiet. Ryan's face tightened. Dad, don't do this. Do what? Act like everyone's attacking you. You brought strangers into my home to discuss selling it without my permission. For your benefit too.
No.
For yours. His eyes flashed. You don't get it, he said. You never get it. You sit here in this house, refusing to move, refusing to change, refusing to help me build something. I helped you build everything I could. Ryan laughed once, sharp and bitter. With what? Disability checks and guilt. Megan said his name in warning, but he kept going. You've been useless for years, Dad. This house is the only thing you have left that can actually help me. The words hung in the air. Allison looked horrified. The developer's representative studied his shoes. Megan's eyes filled with tears, but not the soft kind. Angry tears. I wanted to answer. I wanted to tell him about the smoke, the beam, the way his small body felt under my arm as I dragged us toward the stairs, the way my legs disappeared from my life so his could keep running. But the old instinct rose before the truth. Protect him, even from this. So I swallowed the pain and said, I'm tired. I turned my chair toward the hallway. Ryan exhaled like I was being dramatic. Megan stepped between us. You have no idea what that man gave up for you, she said. Ryan's face hardened. I'm so sick of everyone acting like he's a saint because he sits in a chair. I stopped moving. For 1 second, Megan looked like she might slap him. Instead, she said, Go upstairs. Ryan frowned. What? You want to know why this house matters? Go upstairs. Attic closet. Metal box. Ask your father what's inside. My hands tightened on the wheels of my chair. Megan, I said quietly. She looked at me with tears on her face. I'm sorry, Uncle Ed, but he needs to know. Ryan looked between us, irritated now, like we were both conspiring to make him feel guilty. Then he walked past me toward the stairs. He went up angry. He came down a different man. Ryan later told me the attic smelled like dust, old insulation, and heat trapped from summers that had come and gone while he was busy becoming ashamed of where he came from. He had not been up there in years. The attic was not easy to reach. A narrow pull-down ladder opened from the upstairs hallway, and because I could no longer climb stairs, everything stored there had become a kind of time capsule. Holiday decorations, old school projects, boxes of clothes, a broken fan, my firefighter dress uniform sealed in plastic. And in the back corner, behind a stack of faded storage bins, a gray metal lockbox. His name was written on masking tape across the top. Ryan. He thought it would be deed paperwork, maybe old savings bonds, maybe something I had hidden because I was stubborn and sentimental. The box was not locked. Inside was the life I had spent 24 years trying to keep from crushing him. At the top was a yellowed newspaper clipping. Firefighter paralyzed after saving child from house fire. Ryan told me he stared at the headline for almost a minute before reading the article. Not because the words were complicated, but because some part of him already knew they were about to rearrange his entire life. The article described a residential fire on Linden Avenue. Electrical origin. Off-duty firefighter Edward Miller entered the second floor without gear to rescue his 5-year-old son. Child recovered alive. Miller suffered severe spinal injuries after structural collapse. Listed in critical condition at Mercy General. There was a photograph. I was younger in it, stronger, barely recognizable beneath soot and blood, being loaded into an ambulance. In the background, another firefighter held a small boy wrapped in a blanket. Ryan saw himself in that blanket. He sat down on the attic floor. Under the article was the official incident report from the fire department. It included the timeline. First alarm. Neighbor call. Engine arrival. Rescue already in progress when crew entered. Victim 1. Minor child. Removed from structure by father prior to crew extraction. Victim 2. Adult male. Trapped under partial ceiling collapse. Then came the hospital report. Ryan read words that had been part of my body for more than 2 decades. Thoracic spinal cord trauma. Burst fracture. Emergency decompression surgery. Loss of motor function below injury level. Long-term wheelchair dependence likely. There was a note from the attending physician. Patient repeatedly asked if his son survived before consenting to surgery. Ryan put the paper down because his hands were shaking too badly to hold it. In the box, there were photographs from before the fire. Me in uniform with my crew. Me holding Ryan on my shoulders outside Engine 14. Me kneeling beside him while he wore his plastic firefighter helmet. Me standing beside Carol in front of the house before the ramp was built. In every picture, I was standing. That was the detail that broke him first. Not the medical terms. Not the article. The standing. He had spent most of his life thinking of me as a man who belonged in a chair. Now he was seeing proof that I had once run into danger with a strong back, strong legs, and a future that had not yet been taken apart. Then he found the insurance files. The settlement had been smaller than people imagine when they hear the word compensation. The fire started in our own house, from wiring we had planned to replace but could not afford yet. The city honored my bravery, but bravery did not erase bills. Disability helped, but it did not restore income. Medical coverage fought over therapy. Home modifications cost money. Rebuilding after the fire cost money. Raising a child alone cost money. Ryan found receipts from his childhood tucked into envelopes. School supplies, winter coats, baseball registration, college application fees, tuition deposits, a used laptop. Every envelope had notes in my handwriting. Paid late, ask for extension, skip therapy this month. Then he found letters from his mother. Carol had written several after she left. I had kept them, not because I wanted to remember the pain, but because I thought one day Ryan might ask questions about her, and I did not want hatred to be the only thing I could give him. One letter said, "I know you want Ryan to think I left because I was selfish. Maybe I was. But every corner of that house reminds me of the fire. Every time I see your chair, I remember what happened. I cannot live inside the consequences of that night forever." Another said, "Do not tell him. He is a child. Let him have a normal life. Let him believe you were hurt at work. If he knows it was because of him, it will ruin him." Ryan read those lines and understood something I had not wanted him to understand. His mother had not protected him from guilt alone. She had protected herself from shame. Then, at the bottom of the box, he found the envelope. For Ryan, if he ever needs to know the truth. It was sealed. My handwriting was on the front, older and steadier than it is now. He opened it. Inside was a letter I had written years earlier, on a night when pain medication was not working in Ryan, then 15, had slammed his bedroom door after calling me embarrassing for dropping him off too close to school in the wheelchair-accessible van. I never gave him the letter, but I wrote it because there are words a parent needs to put somewhere, even if the child is not ready to receive them. Ryan, if you are reading this, then something has happened that made the truth necessary. You were 5 when the fire happened. You were not careless. You were not responsible. You were a child in a burning house, and I was your father. There was no decision to make. I did not lose my legs because of you. I used them for what they were meant to do. They carried me to you. I know sometimes you are ashamed of the chair. I know you wish I were different. I wish that too sometimes, not because I regret saving you, but because I wanted to be the kind of father who could run beside you, teach you to climb, stand at your games, and walk into every room without people looking at us first. But listen to me carefully. I would go into that fire again. Every time. Do not carry my injury as your guilt. Carry my love as your responsibility. Live well. Be kind. Do not measure people by what their bodies can no longer do. And if I have failed you by staying silent, forgive me. I was only trying to let you grow up free. Love, Dad. Ryan told me later that he read the last line over and over. I was only trying to let you grow up free. But he did not feel free in that attic. He felt trapped under the weight of every eye roll, every dismissive comment. Every time he had described me as useless, retired, dependent, difficult, embarrassing. He remembered leaving me out of work events. He remembered asking me not to come to his college orientation because the campus was too hard to navigate. He remembered telling dates that my injury was complicated because he did not want to explain the wheelchair. He remembered the living room. You've been useless for years. He ran downstairs with the letter in his hand. But I was not there. My wheelchair was gone from the hallway. The real estate agent had left. The developer's representative had left. Megan was in the kitchen crying quietly. On the coffee table was the property valuation sheet Ryan had wanted me to sign. Across the bottom, in handwriting made shaky by anger, pain, and exhaustion, I had written, "If selling it helps you, I won't stand in your way anymore." Ryan read that sentence and broke. Because for the first time, he understood that the man he had called useless was still trying to give him everything. Ryan found me at the firefighters' memorial near Station 14. It was not far from the old house, but far enough that getting there in my chair took effort. The sidewalk cracked in 2 places. The curb cuts were uneven. A younger man might not have noticed. A man in a wheelchair notices every inch of a city that was not built with him in mind. I had gone there because I did not know where else to take my grief. The memorial was a low stone wall with engraved names, a bronze helmet, and a flag that snapped hard in the wind. My name was not on it because I had survived. I used to feel grateful for that. That day, I was not sure what I felt. I was sitting in front of the wall when I heard Ryan running. "Dad!" I did not turn around right away. I knew his voice. I knew the panic in it. I knew he had found the box. The wheels of my chair were locked. My hands rested in my lap. I stared at the names of men who had died in fires and thought about how strange it is to survive something and still lose so much that people assume you did nothing at all. Ryan stopped beside me, breathing hard. He was holding my letter. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he lowered himself to the ground in front of my chair. Not crouched, not bent slightly. He went down on both knees on the cold concrete like his body had finally understood what his pride had done. "I read it," he said. I closed my eyes. "You weren't supposed to find it like that. I wasn't supposed to call you useless." The word hurt again, but differently this time. Now it came wrapped in shame. I looked at him. His face was wet. I had seen him cry as a child, of course. Scraped knees. Nightmares. The day his mother left and he pretended not to care until he found one of her sweaters in the laundry basket. But I had not seen him cry as a man. Not like this. "I'm sorry," he said. "Dad, I am so sorry." I wanted to make it easier for him. That was my first instinct. Even after everything, part of me wanted to say, "It's okay." Part of me wanted to take the pain out of his hands and carry it for him, because that was what I had always done. But for once I did not. It wasn't okay, I said. He nodded fast, almost desperately. I know. No, I said. I need you to hear me. I understand why you didn't know. That part is on me. But what you said today came from somewhere. You didn't need the fire story to know I was still your father. Ryan covered his mouth with one hand. I hated being poor, he said. I hated feeling like everyone else had fathers who could do things. I hated the house, the van, the ramp. I thought if I got far enough away from all of it, I'd become someone else. And did you? He shook his head.
No.
I became someone worse. The wind moved over the memorial. I looked at the station across the street. Firefighters I did not know anymore moved in and out of the bay. Younger men. Strong legs. Quick movements. One of them glanced toward us, then looked away respectfully. Ryan held up the letter. You wrote that you would go into the fire again. I would. Even now. Even now. After everything it cost you? I looked at my hands. The hands still worked. They had wheeled me through 24 years of life after the fire. They had cooked dinners, fixed sinks from seated positions, signed school forms, counted dollars, held Ryan when fever made him small again. Ryan, I said. You were my son before you were anything else. There was no calculation. He bent forward then, his forehead almost touching my knees. I don't know how to live with this. That is why I didn't tell you. But not knowing made me cruel. Knowing can make you cruel too if you only turn it into guilt. He looked up. So what do I do? You live differently. It was the only answer I had. He wanted punishment. I could see that. He wanted me to yell, to reject him, to give him some dramatic consequence that would match the size of his regret. But real regret is not paid off in one emotional moment. It is paid slowly in changed behavior, in humility, in the quiet repetition of better choices. I was going to sell your house, he whispered. You were trying to build a future. I was trying to steal yours. I did not answer. He looked toward the memorial wall. You gave up being a firefighter. I didn't give it up. It was taken. You gave up walking. My legs were taken too. You gave up Mom. I exhaled slowly. Your mother made her own choice. She blamed you. She was angry. She blamed the fire. She could not live with what it changed. Ryan's voice dropped. And I blamed you for the same thing. That was the deepest truth, and we both knew it. He had inherited Carol's resentment without knowing the story behind it. He had seen my chair as the center of everything difficult in his childhood. The tight money, the old house, the missed opportunities, the embarrassment. But now he understood the chair was not the cause. It was the evidence. Evidence that I had once stood between him and death. Ryan wiped his face. I don't want to sell the house. I looked at him. Do not say that because you feel guilty. I'm saying it because it's yours. It will be yours one day. Then I want to inherit it with honor. Not take it from you while you're still living in it. That was the first sentence that gave me hope. Not the apology. Because it was not about how badly he felt. It was about what he finally understood. The house was not an asset trapped under my wheelchair. It was a life still being lived. Ryan stood and moved behind me. Can I take you home? I almost said I could manage. Then I stopped myself. Yes, I said. He unlocked the wheels and pushed my chair carefully along the path. For once, he did not rush. He did not act embarrassed when people looked. He slowed near every crack in the sidewalk. At the curb, he leaned down and checked the angle before moving me forward. It was a small thing, but small things are where change begins. On the way home, he called Megan. Ask everyone to come back, he said. I turned slightly. Ryan. No, he said. I humiliated you in that room. I'm going to tell the truth in that room. I shook my head. You do not have to make a speech. Yes, he said quietly. Ido. When we got back to the house, the living room looked exactly the way we had left it, except everything felt different. The coffee cups were still on the table. The valuation papers were still there. The developer's folder still sat near the edge of the couch. Sunlight came through the front window and fell across the place on the floor where Ryan had stood when he called me useless. Megan had called the others back. Allison, the real estate agent, returned first. She looked embarrassed and kept apologizing for being involved. The developer's representative came too, though I suspected he returned only because he still smelled a possible deal. 2 relatives arrived after Megan called them. They had heard enough family rumors over the years to know this was not a normal meeting. Ryan stood in the center of the room. I sat near the window again. This time he did not stand over me. He stood beside me. That alone made the room feel different. Ryan held the hospital report in one hand and the old newspaper clipping in the other. His voice shook when he started, but he did not stop. Earlier today, I said something about my father that was cruel and false, he said. I called him useless. No one moved. I said it because I wanted this house sold. I wanted money for my business. I told myself I was being practical. But the truth is, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of the house, ashamed of where I came from, and ashamed of my father's disability. Megan crossed her arms, eyes wet. Ryan swallowed. I didn't know the truth. But not knowing does not excuse what I became. He lifted the newspaper clipping. When I was 5 years old, this house caught fire. I was trapped upstairs. My father was off duty, but he was a firefighter. He went into the smoke without gear, found me, wrapped me in a blanket and carried me out. When the ceiling collapsed, he covered me with his body. His voice broke. That is why he is in that wheelchair. The developer's representative shifted uncomfortably. Ryan continued. He lost his career, his mobility, his marriage, and the life he had built. He raised me anyway. He paid for my school. He skipped his own medical treatment. He kept the truth from me because he didn't want me to feel responsible. He looked at me then, and I used that silence to judge him. I had to look down. There is a particular kind of pain in hearing your child tell the truth you tried to bury. Part of me felt relief. Part of me wanted to stop him and say he had done enough. But another part of me, a part one did not know was still waiting, needed to hear my life spoken accurately in my own living room. Ryan turned to Allison. I'm sorry I brought you into this without my father's real consent. Then to the developer's representative. This house is not for sale. The man opened his folder. Mr. Miller, I understand this is an emotional moment, but the offer. Ryan stepped toward him.
No.
You don't understand. This house is not an emotional obstacle. It is my father's home. You can leave. The man glanced at me, perhaps expecting me to contradict my son. I did not. For the first time in a long while, someone else protected my boundary before I had to fight for it. The representative packed his papers. Allison quietly did the same. Before leaving, she looked at me and said, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry. I should have made sure you wanted this process. I nodded. Thank you. After they left, the room stayed quiet. One of my cousins, Paul, cleared his throat. Ed, why didn't you ever tell us it was that bad? Megan answered before I could. Because everyone let him be quiet. That sentence landed harder than she intended. Because it was true. People had accepted the simpler version because it demanded less from them. Edward got hurt at work. Edward is disabled. Edward needs help. Edward is stubborn. Edward is difficult about the house. Nobody had to ask what his silence was protecting. Nobody had to sit with the fact that a man can be called a burden by the very people his sacrifice made whole. Ryan looked at the floor. I want to fix the house, he said. I almost laughed from exhaustion. With what money? With time first, he said. Then money when I have it. I can start with the ramp, the bathroom door, the kitchen cabinets. Things you've been working around because you didn't want to ask. I have managed. I know, he said. That's the problem. You shouldn't have had to manage alone. For a while, no one said anything. Then Megan walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. I'll help, she said. Paul nodded. Me too. The relatives who had come to witness drama suddenly looked ashamed to be witnesses to something else. The overdue beginning of accountability. Ryan picked up the property valuation sheet from the table. The one with my shaky sentence written across the bottom. If selling it helps you, I won't stand in your way anymore. He tore it in half. Then he tore it again. The sound was small, but to me it felt louder than applause. Later that evening, after everyone left, Ryan stayed. He cleaned the kitchen without asking where things went, because for once he noticed. He took the trash out. He adjusted the rug near the hallway where my wheels sometimes caught. He gathered the hospital papers carefully and placed them back into the metal box, but he did not hide it in the attic. He set it on the coffee table. Not buried anymore, he said. I looked at the box. For 24 years, I thought burying the truth made me strong. Maybe strength was knowing when to stop burying it. Ryan did not become a perfect son overnight. That would make this story easier, but less honest. Regret can break a person open, but what fills the space afterward depends on what they do when nobody is watching. The first week, Ryan tried too hard. He called every morning, every afternoon, every night. He asked if I needed groceries, medicine, help with laundry, help with bills, help with everything. It was overwhelming in a different way. Finally, I told him, "You cannot repay 24 years in 7 days." He went quiet. "I know," he said. "I just don't know how to start." "Start small," I told him, "and keep starting." So he did. The first thing he fixed was the ramp. The old wooden ramp had been built in a hurry after the fire, repaired many times and ignored too often. One board dipped in the middle. In rain, it became slick. In winter, it became dangerous. I had learned how to handle it, which is what disabled people often call survival when they are tired of asking for help. Ryan arrived Saturday morning with lumber, tools, Megan, and 2 men from a volunteer accessibility group he had contacted. He did not announce it like a grand gesture. He simply said, "We're making this safer." I sat in the driveway and watched them work. For years, I had been the man who fixed things. Watching other people fix something for me stirred up pride, grief, and relief all at once. The new ramp was wider, sturdier, with proper grip strips and a railing that did not wobble. When I rolled up it the first time, Ryan watched my face like a child waiting for a grade. "It's good," I said. He smiled, but did not make it about himself. That was progress. Next came the bathroom door. Then the kitchen shelves lowered to a height I could reach. Then the hallway rug replaced with flooring that did not catch my wheels. Ryan researched grants, disability resources, and veteran-style home modification programs even though I was not a veteran. He found local nonprofits. He filled out forms. He learned how much of my life had been spent adapting to things no one else noticed. He also changed the way he spoke about me. At work, when someone asked why he missed a networking dinner, he said, "I'm helping my dad with some home repairs." When they asked about me, he did not hide behind vague phrases. "My dad was a firefighter," he said. "He was injured saving my life." The first time he told me that, I felt both proud and uncomfortable. "I don't want to be your tragedy story," I said. "You're not," he replied. "You're my father. And I'm done editing you down because I was insecure." The startup did not happen the way he planned. Without the money from the house, he had to scale back. He took a smaller path, partnered with people who expected him to bring skill instead of quick cash, and kept his regular job longer than he wanted. At first, I worried he would resent me again. He did not. Or if resentment tried to return, he recognized it before feeding it. "That old version of me would have blamed you," he admitted one night while replacing a light fixture in the garage. "This version knows I was trying to build my future by stealing your security." I laughed. "That is a very expensive lesson." He looked at the wheelchair, then at me. "Yeah," he said. "You paid most of it." We turned the garage into something useful again. Not a business. Not at first. Just a space. Ryan found my old fire department memorabilia, cleaned it, framed what needed framing, and hung the newspaper clipping beside a photo of me in uniform. I resisted at first. I did not want the house turned into a shrine to the worst night of my life. But Ryan said, "It's not about the fire. It's about telling the truth." So we told the truth. Engine 14 invited me back for a small recognition ceremony after Megan contacted one of my old crew members. I almost refused. I had avoided the station for years because seeing the trucks made my chest ache. But Ryan asked if he could come with me, and there was something in his voice that made me say yes. The station had changed. New paint, new equipment, younger firefighters who knew my name from a plaque but not my face. 2 of my old colleagues came, both grayer, slower, still carrying that firehouse humor men use when emotion gets too close. One of them, Alvarez, hugged me hard enough to hurt. "You stubborn fool," he said. "You should have let us honor you years ago." I shrugged. I was busy. Being impossible? Raising a kid. He looked at Ryan, and his expression softened. "That kid know what you did?" Ryan answered before I could. "He does now." The ceremony was small. Coffee, a few folding chairs, a framed commendation that had been sitting in department archives, and stories I had not heard in years. They talked about the firefighter I had been before the chair. Not with pity, with respect. Ryan listened to every word. Afterward, he stood beside me in front of Engine 14. "I wish I had known that version of you," he said. "You knew me," I replied. "Just not all of me." He nodded. "I want to know the rest." That became our new beginning. He asked questions. Real ones. What calls stayed with me. What I loved about the job. What scared me. What it felt like to wake up after surgery and understand my legs were not coming back. What it was like when his mother left. Whether I hated her. I told him the truth when I could. Sometimes the truth was, "I'm not ready to answer that." He accepted that too. Months passed. The house stayed mine. The development company bought other properties on the street, but not ours. They sent one more offer. Ryan threw it away before I saw it, then thought better of it, pulled it from the trash and handed it to me. "Your house," he said. "Your decision." I read it. Then I threw it away myself. We both smiled. The biggest change was not the ramp, the repairs, the station ceremony, or even Ryan's apology. It was the way he looked at me. Before, when he looked at my wheelchair, I could feel him seeing limitation. Inconvenience. A reminder of everything he wanted to escape. Afterward, he still saw the chair, of course. He could not unsee it. But now he saw what it meant. Not failure. Cost. Love with a receipt. One evening, nearly a year after the day he called me useless, Ryan came over with dinner. We ate in the living room because the kitchen table was covered with old photos he had asked to sort. He picked up one from before the fire. Me standing in turnout gear, Ryan on my shoulders, both of us laughing. "I used to think success meant getting away from this house," he said. "And now," he looked around. The new ramp outside, the repaired walls, the framed article, the fire helmet on the shelf, the old house that had survived flames, abandonment, shame, and a developer's offer. Now I think success means becoming the kind of man who deserves to come back. I did not say anything for a while. Then I nodded. That's a good start. Ryan kept the letter I wrote him. Not hidden in the attic. Not buried in a box. He framed a copy and kept the original in his apartment. He told me he reads it whenever he catches himself measuring people by money, status, or convenience. Do not measure people by what their bodies can no longer do. He said that line bothers him the most. Good. Some lines should. As for me, I learned something too. I had believed silence was the purest form of love. I thought if Ryan never knew the truth, he would be free. But children do not grow in the truth you hide from them. They grow around the hole it leaves. I still do not want him to carry guilt. But I am no longer willing to carry the entire story alone. Edward Miller did not become useless when he lost his legs. He became a father who had to love from a chair, fight through pain, and survive being misunderstood by the person he saved. Ryan did not become a better son because he cried one afternoon. He became better because he changed the way he lived after the crying stopped. That is what apology really is. Not words. A new pattern. The house still creaks in winter. The upstairs is still full of boxes. The garage still smells faintly of smoke when the weather is damp. though maybe that is only memory. But now, when Ryan visits, he does not rush past the old photographs or avoid the fire helmet on the shelf. He stops. He looks. He remembers. And every so often, before he leaves, he places one hand on the back of my chair and says, "Need anything before I go, Dad?" Not with pity, with respect. That is all I ever wanted. If this story made you think of a parent, a grandparent, or someone whose sacrifices you did not understand until later, leave your thoughts in the comments. If you believe people should not be judged by what their bodies can no longer do, share this story with someone who needs that reminder. And subscribe for more emotional stories where the truth comes out, pride breaks, and love finally gets the chance to heal what silence almost destroyed.